So I was just thinking, what do you do during a pandemic? And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because the several months that we've been going through the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, a lot of us have had, frankly, some spare time. Unfortunately, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And if not, you may be working less, or you may just be at home, working from home, a lot more spare time in your hands. What do you do? And I've been thinking about this a lot. And as a software engineer, um, this is like a perfect opportunity to learn a new programming language, especially if it's one that's in demand. So lately, one of the languages I've been trying to learn a little bit more about is Rust. I was kind of intrigued because I was taking a look at a project right now. It's called Dino, and it was started by Ryan Dahl, the guy who started the Node.js project. And one of the things I thought was interesting about that project was that one of the things that he did was he built the base for Dino using Rust, which was interesting because Node was originally built on top of C++. The library that's used as the basis for being able to run the JavaScript code in Node.js is actually a C++ library. So they actually had to take the Dino application, they had to create bindings into the V8 C++ engine. And so I was kind of intrigued by that. And so I've been trying to learn a little bit more about Rust and find out if it's something that would be practical, something that I could use for my job. But this is something that, I think most software engineers will run through their career. There's people I've worked with that, just wanted to learn one language. And that generally works for a little while. When I first started doing web development, I started using a language called ColdFusion. And ColdFusion is actually still used quite a bit, like in certain sectors, for instance, in the government sector. It's still very popular. And there's open source versions of it out there. So if you don't want to pay Adobe for a ColdFusion license, you can still develop using one of these open source alternatives. But even back then, when I was doing ColdFusion development, when you needed to do something that was outside the realm of ColdFusion, or something that ColdFusion didn't have the capability of doing, and there's a lot of stuff that ColdFusion had built out of the box. It had a search engine built into it. It had XML parsing built into it. But if you had, for instance, a very large XML file that you needed to be able to process, well, that's something that Java actually did a lot better job of doing back then. And after ColdFusion 5, ColdFusion MX, when it was released, it was actually built on top of Java. So you could extend ColdFusion by using Java, and that became a very popular thing. If there's something that wasn't built into ColdFusion that you needed to do, you could extend it using Java. And so I started learning a little bit of Java so I could take advantage of that. But even just using regular ColdFusion, if you're doing stuff in the web browser, you needed to know JavaScript, so that's another language. If you're going to be talking to a database, then you needed, most likely back then, you needed to learn and know how to use SQL. Now there's a lot more different varieties of databases that you can use. So there's really three languages that you needed to be able to learn. You needed to know SQL, JavaScript, and ColdFusion if you're doing ColdFusion development. And I'm pretty sure it was the same on the ASP 3.0 side. You needed to know VB, but you also needed to know SQL and JavaScript. But now, for instance, in my current job, I do mobile development, and we do Android and iOS development. And there's some frameworks you can use, for example, React Native, where you can do the bulk of your development using JSX, which is a superset of JavaScript based off React. And then that code will run on iOS and Android. But we do everything natively. So on the Android side, I had to use Java to do that, and then they have a new language now called Kotlin, and so I'm trying to get more familiar with Kotlin as well. On the iOS side, Objective-C was the language that was the basis for all the initial iOS development, and now I think Swift has taken over. Swift is now the default language that people use when they're building, especially with new frameworks like Swift UI. So just doing my regular day job, it's like there's 4 different programming languages that I need to know to be able to do my job. But on top of that, we have a partner in Salesforce, and they have their own programming language they came up with called Apex. And so I've had to learn Apex as well for doing that job. Plus, we do some things with JavaScript. So realistically, I have to use 2 hands now. 6 different programming languages I need to know in order to be able to do my job. So I'd say if you've got free time right now, and I'd use that to learn something new. It doesn't have to be a new programming language. It could be a new framework. It could be something that you could use so that if you are switching jobs or you're trying to make an improvement to your career, you can take advantage of something by learning something new while you have this off time. So that was just some quick thoughts I had on that. You could also use it to catch up on your Netflix or other streaming services that you might have, but for me, I've been trying to learn more things. So with that, if you like this video, to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and we'll be seeing you again. Thanks.